Hello and welcome back to the Pirate Players That Are Now podcast. I am your Hampton football enthusiast, TJ Jones, and I am here at the end of the football season. Thought we would be discussing how it went and where we're going and some of the highlights, but we have circumstances that have emerged and the opportunity to chat about those things. So I am joined today by Mr. Adam Spencer and my brother Wesley for perspective as it relates to these transitions. So what transition are we talking about? We're talking about the university deciding after a 2-win season to move on from head coach Trent Boykin. As you might recall, for those of us who follow this more closely, he had been on the staff for some time. It was named interim head coach following the departure of Coach Prunty in the spring of 2024. And was named head coach fully during the season last year, I believe in like late October, and subsequently particularly struggled. And there's a variety of reasons which we can get into related to that. So at the culmination, the close of this season, the university led by A.D. Henderson, and I'm sure with the approval of the president and the board, decided that it was time to move on from him. I do not revel in in a man losing his job. That is, I'm not here to celebrate that. I don't do that. That's not within me. I am interested in discussing some of the fallout that comes from that, as well as maybe some of the reasons that it came about and kind of where we might be looking going forward. And I thought it was very appropriate to have Adam on. We've talked extensively about this, and my brother as well, as he and I had that great discussion about, well, how do you define success? And, my definition may be a little different than some others. So with that, I want to give folks a chance to go ahead and speak on where we are and where we're going. Adam, jump in. Give me a couple minutes of kind of, the end of the season and what really happened in your mind related to Coach Boykin.
First of all, fellas, good everything. Go Pirates. Wow. Y'all know I live on the West Coast, so I think I was the first one in our chat group to see it. Shout outs to Big Reek and Jeff, everybody over at the Pirate Ship Podcast, HE Pirate Ship Podcast. We were all in the chat group, kind of just discussing the season as a whole. And I guess it was about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning here. Something said, look at the school website. Go to the football team. And there it was. I'm still a little gobsmacked that they went to make this move. We've had the discussions about, finances. I know you guys wanted to do the conversation you had earlier in the year, but the timing of when you guys had your conversation was apropos to that Howard game. And, when we really had to start looking in the mirror at, okay, well, what is going on? I'm still a little shocked. Folks outside the HBCU community, folks outside of the Hampton community, but in the HBCU community on Twitter seem to be like, well, yeah, we can see this coming. Us, we were ruminating over whether we should do it or not, or what the next steps were, or how to make the program better. AD and Mulver, president, I think, made a decision. And in talking to some folks on campus, obviously, some of the conversations we've had in the chat group, you can kind of see this coming in a way. For as much of a shock as it was, you could
certainly some
alums see this coming.
Some did. Wes, I know your thought process was a little different, but what do you have any initial thoughts as it relates to what happened?
I think I'm surprised. I'm like surprised and not surprised at the same time. Right? I'm surprised because I guess it was year 2, and you would, and I don't know what their expectations were for success this year, Hampton. This is back to our original podcast, right? Did Hampton really think they had a shot at competing in the CAA? Did they think they'd go 5-5? They beat their rival. They beat Norfolk State. They got destroyed by Howard. Maybe that was part of this whole thing. But I think this is a reaction to Norfolk State, in my opinion. I think this is a reaction to Norfolk State's bringing all the oxygen into the room with all the things they're doing. It doesn't matter. They 1-9, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Again, they bring in a lot of attention to the Tidewater area. And Hampton, they were 2-9, right? And they really weren't that competitive in most games. I mean, they made some noise here and there. They beat their rival. I think this is a lot of pressure internally to see what are we really trying to be? Do we really think we're going to compete in the CAA? And if we're not really serious about competing in the CAA, then what is an alternative goal for our our institution going forward? Do we want to be more like what Norfolk State just did, make a big splash? I think most teams are looking at it like, well, we're going to win. We can get to the FCS playoffs or we can get to the Celebration Bowl, right? And Hampton can't get to the Celebration Bowl, right? That's not an option on the table. They took that on option out of off the table, right? So if they don't really think they can compete for the FCS playoffs, then their only other goals are to beat your rivals, right? Norfolk State and Howard. And then what is your other, is that good enough? When you see like a team like Norfolk State make a big splash, bring X amount more revenue, attention, media attention, all this extra buzz to, no matter what their record is. So I think this is somewhat a performance thing. Maybe he underperformed what their low expectations probably were for the year, but also saying maybe we should revisit what we want to be here. TJ and I have talked about this. If it's not going to no more scholarships, we're just going to go after academics. And if it's not going all in on CAA championship, then maybe they just want to make a bigger splash at head coach and try to get more, ESPN to show up and Good Morning America show up with a big name like a Charles Woodson, Randy Moss, or Ray Lewis or something like that. So I think this is more about them just maybe saying, you know what, we're getting a lot of pressure over the bridge there, and maybe we want to reevaluate what we want to do in reaction to what Norfolk State did.
I mean, that's fair. I do think that while he didn't perform particularly well, I don't think it helped that they were getting that much energy and over there. I don't really, honestly though, I don't think Hampton really worries about what they do over there. I mean, we're a very different culture, school-wise, just different. And so I think we just underperformed what Hampton was expecting. But that's a challenge, right? Because I'm not going to make excuses for anybody here, but I really think that Boykin was in a really bad spot. I mean, when you have your entire O-line and D-line gone, and he was saying I want to say from like the spring of last year, I'm sorry, spring of this year, hey, we're having real trouble with up front in the trenches, getting guys, up front in the trenches. He's saying that over and over, he was saying that. We, should have level set our expectations. I thought the university did. And apparently there was something else. So if it wasn't the wins and losses, then it was how we lost. Perhaps there were some discipline issues, a lot of penalties, things like that, or maybe off the field things like the fundraising and dealing with alumni and that kind of stuff. I don't know about any of that as far as how well he was doing in those types of spaces and places, but any of those combination of factors could have played into this. And yet I still think that he was dealt a very weak hand and was expected to somehow, some way do something. And in that type of situation, you have to almost be perfect. If you make any, if it doesn't go right, or if there's some calculation that you miscalculate, it's hard to recover because you don't have what you would need to overcome some mistakes. You got to play basically mistake free in order to make that work. And I just don't think that was there. So, I certainly hope he lands on his feet, and we, certainly thank him. I think we all feel that way for his service, not only over the last 2 years, but his time prior to that as the running backs coach, a special teams coach, and he's been at Hampton for a while, so he's part of the culture. I want to move on from Boykin to talk about my favorite topic in this, which is the players. But obviously, he's a grown man; he's got a job, and that's what it is. But everybody's human. I'm sure that this is not a good day. Shout out, appreciate the work that he did with the young men.
Absolutely.
Coming out of, compliance issues. And even though they didn't lose any scholarships, obviously he's trying to walk a tight line there. And so that brings me to discuss, let's go with the coaches. I know that's the hotter of the two topics. All right, Adam, you've been warming this one up for a minute. So,
Yeah.
I know where Wesley is on this. Actually, hold on, Wes. I know your comment is real short. Go ahead, Wesley. Tell me about the 2 or 3 guys, I'm sure, that have gold jackets that you want. Go ahead.
Well, I guess first of all, I hope that he's okay, but he's a coach, and I believe even if he got fired, his contract is still going to be paid out. And I hope he had a nice contract, and he's going to be fine. He lands on his feet somewhere, I'm sure. So that's number one. And I do think for the most part, it wasn't about wanting a celebrity coach. I think they played well last year, and they expected more momentum this year. and they regressed in bad ways. And I didn't think that helped, especially with what was happening over on Norfolk State side of the fence. I think it was hard for the administration to accept that. That's all. I'll leave it at that. For me, my opinion is I don't think it matters who's the coach at Hampton University, personally. That's my opinion. Because as alumni, we are the exception, not the rule. We're the ones who go to the games and actually care about what's happening on the field. That's not normal. Most people don't care about what's happening when you go to a game. They're there, like I've said this many times, they're there for the band, they're there for the atmosphere, the culture. They don't know what Hampton's record is. They don't care if we're doing good, bad, or indifferent. And I know we take that personally because we're like, man, the football matters. But the average person who's going to the school, they don't care. All they care is about, when I'm at homecoming, did we beat our homecoming, whoever we played, and did we beat our rival? But for the most part, the average person doesn't care. So that's number one. So I want, personally, what I want is us, if we're not going to pick a lane, right? If we're not going to go be North Dakota State, and if we're not going to be back in the MEAC with a chance at the Celebration Bowl, then what do we want to be when we grow up? Is it good enough to just be okay in the CAA every year? Is it good enough to just beat our rivals? Or we actually have a defined goal that we can all rally around that matters here? And to me, if we don't have that goal, then I like what Norfolk State did. They said, you know what? Who cares? None of this matters. Let's go get somebody who can bring some buzz, attention, bring Good Morning America, put us in bigger venues, increase our gate revenue, increase attendance, TV view, whatever the metrics are. Put more scholarships together, more funding for financial aid. That's my point of view. I'd rather them go get a Ray Lewis, Randy Moss, Charles Woodson kind of guy who brings buzz and attention, because if there's no clear goal for everybody to be on the same page, that's our goal for the year, then I think it just doesn't matter. Let's just go after the celebrity and let's celebrate that, get the money, and get more kids graduated through Hampton University. That's my opinion, personally.
At this moment, Wes, I would say that there's a faction of alums that agree with you, because we're at that moment where it's wide open. Adam,
I want to hear what Adam has to say about this stuff. I really do. Let's see.
Wes, I think your mindset is half the fan base.
Mm-hmm.
We've had 4 basic failures that really surround the athletic department, but hit the football team, I won't say the most, but definitely affected it. Number 1, Joe Taylor should have never been fired. Number 1. 2018, when, after the decision was made, fine. We know who was in charge, and no one was going to tell him any differently.
Mm-hmm.
So you made the decision, and you still underfunded the athletic department. The one department in the school truly affected by the move.
Mm-hmm.
In that same time, 2018, Charles Huff was on Penn State's staff. He had coached at Hampton in 2010. He had coached up and down the offense for, I think, 10 years by the time he was up in 2018. No one still can answer if we even called him in 2018 when the move was made. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4 is, 22. President Harvey, love him, decides to step down. We make the decision to bring in President Williams.
Mm-hmm.
What else happens? The AD, I can't remember his last name at the time, he decides to go back home to Binghamton, take the AD job that was there. We waited till February of 23 to fill the AD position. I maintain if we had got him in earlier, by at least November of 22, I don't know if we'd be here. Because he'd have been coming in off for that homecoming against Richmond. A decision could have been made, and I don't think we'd be here. I don't think the eligibility issues probably still would have been there, but you would have been able to nip it in the bud earlier. So he comes in with a new president in February. He does I think he said it was either 45 or 90-day assessment of the program. So he comes in and he's assessing the program. A new president is inaugurated. What are we in? And eligibility issues up and down, not just the football team, up and down the athletic department. So I think those were the 4 clear mistakes.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think Hampton's goal was, or your personal goal for the football team was this year?
I thought they could have gotten to 8 wins. I don't think they were prepared for what happened in the portal from January of this year. I said this in the chat group. I maintain we were nowhere close to being prepared for what happened in that portal. I think they understood the environment we're in. I think they embraced the environment we're in, but I don't think they were prepared for it. And that's part of the reason why you had to make the decision that was made today. Nothing has changed in 6 years of Hampton football.
Yeah.
That
Well,
Jackson State game should look familiar. Some of the conference losses should look familiar. We claim William and Mary as a rival. We've had leads against them the last 3 years and still haven't beat them yet. So
yeah,
I
no rivalry
personally
there.
believe I personally believe the president wants a competitive athletic department up and down. Not just football, not just basketball, a competitive athletic department. I personally believe that because I think it started off as number 8, but in his list of things to make us America's #1 university experience, number 6 is the athletic department. We can talk all we want to, but the athletic department, namely football and basketball, ups your enrollment. We can dance around that all we want to, but it is an advertising and marketing tool for the school.
You're making my point, though. You're making my point.
Oh,
I,
Adam.
I think there's more
Exactly.
to it, though. I think they've looked at what's gone on over the past 6 years because most of this football staff goes back to at least 23. And they looked at it and said enough is enough. You
Okay,
know,
Adam, you're making his case for him, which is,
his case is part of the issue.
yeah.
I'll push back in that I think the president and the AD both want to win. I don't think there's a question of whether they want to win or not.
I agree.
Because I think there's a part of Hampton, and if you go on HBCU Twitter, most of HBCU Twitter believes we're just this laissez-faire, just kind of their fan base. No, I think I told you this, TJ. Old Hampton is in Virginia, so that's half the fan base. The other half of the fan base are the ones that wake up. So what has happened is you got both sides of the Hampton fan base involved finally.
Yeah, but
And
involved. So I gotta ask, right? I mean, ultimately, Wesley, I think your question was, what was the expectation, right? Ultimately, was for this year, and I think that's a difficult question because we are optimistic, perhaps
Mhm.
a degree of delusional, but optimistic.
when you looked at the roster after, I'd say, when did we start looking in the roster?
Well, when it
Late May,
finally hit,
June?
yeah, when
Yeah.
the roster came out in late June, we were looking at it going, when did this guy Davis show up, right? And it was players and names and Woods was there,
hmm
right? And we were like, where did these guys come from? We knew we had a quarterback problem because we all of a sudden started seeing extra quarterbacks, or at least I shouldn't
hmm
say quarterback problem, but we had quarterback indecisiveness
hmm
at that point. And, they did with what they could under the circumstances because they clearly were trying to figure out what kind of offense was going to run. But that's neither here nor there. I think Adam said it well. The portal was way more impactful than they anticipated. And you let the assistant head coach, Balmer, go. And Balmer and Bullock is the offensive line guy. Balmer is the defensive line guy. Both of them go, and all of the guys that were with them went. So, and in CAA football, heck, in FCS football, you cannot win without trench play. Well, I
Not
should
in
say
that conference,
FCS and
especially.
up. You cannot win without trench play. And so they had a lot of trouble with trench play. We should have known. And the casuals, as you say, they don't know anything about that. So they go, we're losing. No kidding. And the people who actually know, we should have known because it was going to take a heck of a strategic coaching experience or ability to overcome that. And so that's why the question really is, what were the realistic expectations? Now, here's what I think were the realistic expectations. We should have beat A&T. That was bad. We had that game won. After that, we played well enough against Jackson State. They're really good. We played surprisingly well against them. We should have beat Elizabeth City a lot easier. D2. No disrespect to them. They played up. And Howard didn't have the situation we had. Howard had a bunch of grown, older, senior-like or graduate student linemen, which was the difference. But we were somehow miraculously going to overcome that, which brings me to where I was trying to go, which is with new coaches coming in. How are they going to resolve that problem? A coach on the sidelines cannot fix that problem. Now, we're in the NIL, unfortunately. We're in the pay-to-play world. And Hampton, I'm curious. I'm not saying we can't. I'm saying, is this now a new turn, a commitment to bring in guys with that type of experience, because we're going to put the money on the table to do that. Because I didn't think that that was part of our culture. And this is what I was alluding to with Wes when we had our discussion around success, which was if you do that, if you turn that page and start being that institution, you must deal with the side effects. How does that affect your university's culture?
But I mean, they kind of already made that decision when they left MEAC. And I'm sorry. I mean, we won't forget that. That's nonsense to me, right? They're already chasing the almighty dollar anyway, so we can't have it both ways. That's why I want to decouple what happens on the field with what happens in student life. And for me, it's like, what percentage of alumni or people going to the school right now actually know Hampton's record, actually know the coach was fired? I guarantee less than 10%.
I'm gonna push
But
back
maybe
on
I'm
that,
wrong.
Wesley. I'm
Maybe I'm
gonna
wrong.
push back on that, Wesley.
Okay, all right.
I talked to some folks on campus. That Howard game
Well, they know
set some
Howard, they
folks.
know Norfolk State, but I mean, as a whole, do they know that Hampton was 1 in whatever this year, or 2 in whatever this year?
Now that's the problem.
Right. It's always been the problem.
That's the problem because I think
Yeah.
at HBCU game day did a story right around that homecoming against Richmond where they talked to the fan base or the folks at the game, and the folks, it wasn't so much they were indifferent, it was that they didn't really understand what was going on. So I think what is happening is this decision has been made. What has to happen now is more folks have to be out front. I think the AD's got to be out front now, communicating, this is where we're going. I think the president has got to be out front. This is where we're going.
Well, I said this as you talk about in the chat and so forth, right? And I agree with that. And I'm not trying to at all fault leadership. I think leadership is just stuck in a very challenging spot. And I do believe what's going to happen is they're going to try to continue to walk this tightrope, which is going to be very difficult to do. I think Wesley made a great point, and I had to step back and really think about it today because, after I was stunned by the transition and whatnot.
Right.
The truth of the matter is to leave the MEAC for the Big South and then for the CAA. I don't know that President Harvey really thought about the consequences. Wesley's point is, and I hear you, bro, I just don't like it, right? Is that when you make that decision, you have to be willing to accept the consequences, which is massive changes to the way you do what you do. Funding, right? So the university as a private institution and one of very few HBCUs to, be that D1 HBCUs, right? Private, all private, fully private, right? Has to go out and regularly fundraise just for the school, right? For every part of the school's operations. But unlike every other HBCU that we usually discuss, right? That's what they have to do. So now you're going to cannibalize, I'm sorry, you're going to cannibalize resources from operational funding, where people donate to the university on a regular basis, to put several $1,000,000 into the football program on an annualized basis. Yes, there will be some new dollars that appear, and maybe hopefully there'll be some sponsorships, but you are committing, if you want to be very successful in this space, to taking money which would otherwise be donated towards something else. I always remind Adam, I said, I think their big goal is to be an R1 institution.
It's in that same thing.
That's what I'm
R1
saying.
institution.
So what you're primarily saying is that we want to make this jump. We decided to make this jump, whatever it is. And if that means that we're going to pull money from other places to facilitate this jump, so be it. Because, and I'll get into the players and the impact on the players at the end of this, but that's the part that I have struggled with. And I'm very interested to see what they're going to do because I'm curious. Do they pick a guy who is celebrity-esque? That brings one thing. Do they pick a guy who is not a celebrity but have some significant FCS or even FBS experience? That's another thing. Do they pick a guy who's a head coach right now and is going to bring his whole team with him? Kind of the Chennis Berry situation at South Carolina State. He was successful in part because I think he was at was he at Benedict? Is that where he was?
Yeah, he was at Benedict.
Right.
And he still hadn't lost a conference game in about 3 years now.
Right. I mean, he's a really good coach, but when he came from Benedict, he brought his best players from Benedict with him to backfill the roster as part of that transition, right? Guys he knew, guys who were mature. So I'm very interested to see because who they pick And I want to say this too. If they have any hope of trying to keep any portion of this roster, if they truly want to do that, I hope that this national search includes having players involved in the search, to help with the process. Because if it's a closed door administrative search, you know, I can almost guarantee you next season is going to be just as bad as this one because they're going to be pulling in a bunch of guys who are left on the pile. No disrespect, just saying that's kind of the way it works. I'm talking about the new guys coming in. They'll be pulling in a bunch of guys who are left on the pile, and they're trying to figure it out. And it's going to be a whole year before it gets any better. But the alumni, because they got the change they wanted, will be making all kinds of excuses. Oh, we got to give them time. You got to give them time. Okay, well, Boykin probably wouldn't have done any worse. So, okay, Adam, top three guys. I know you got a list long as your arm. I know you do. Your top three guys, and then Wes, I don't know if you got two guys, because I know you don't spend as much time in this. Go ahead, sir. Come on.
All right, my top three guys, in no particular order: Marcus Dixon, Hampton alum, defensive lineman, current Minnesota Vikings defensive line coach. Number two, and this is the wish list: David Shaw, former Stanford head coach. If anybody should know how to handle himself at a private institution trying to play big time football, because it's very clear we're trying to play big time football, it's David Shaw. Chris Slade, he fits the AD's profile. And for those watching, the AD's profile, look at the two basketball hires. Power 4 assistants from the area.
Well, you said a lot there.
Before there was guys I graduated high school with at the same time and played against in high school. Before there was an Allen Iverson, Aaron Brooks, you name it, Michael Vick, you name it. There was Terry Kirby and Chris Slade at Tabb High School. Look them up. And then, there's the obvious, Nemo. I think we all want him.
Just for the record, that's Nemo Washington, the OC from Delaware State that just helped D-Jack have a wonderful year at Del State. Yeah, man, that's a fair list. I've said this before, and Wes, I know you're thinking bigger than that. You're thinking gold jacket dudes, and I'll say what I say about that, which is I simply don't believe that Hampton, even with this decision to move the dial or the needle, as we say, is interested in anyone whose personality and overall profile is bigger than the school. That does not, from everything I've ever known forever, they just are not going to be wanting someone whose profile is bigger than the school's. General Williams, right? I don't see that. But Wes, I know you don't like that reality. I also don't think it's going to matter because I don't think Hampton's going to pay Michael Vick money. It's a private school. We're never going to know the contract. The reality is that Michael Vick's getting over $400,000 to be head coach of the football team, which I think is more than Hampton football coaches make. Maybe that's going to change. Who's the guy you think would be the one?
I like the David Shaw. That would be okay for me. It wouldn't move mountains.
Wes, let me throw these two names out at you.
Oh boy, here we go.
Let me throw these two names: Byron Leftwich and Teddy Bridgewater.
Maybe Leftwich more than Bridgewater, but okay, that's fine.
Well, Bridgewater has been a coach.
Would not be bigger than Hampton, I don't think.
The fact that we're worried about personalities being bigger than Hampton is part of the problem. Why are we so concerned about that? Do we want to change our culture or not? Win or loss, it doesn't matter. Do you really think we can win the CAA in the next 3 to 5 years? And if we do, does it really even matter? I don't know. We're not.
Yeah. Wes, so, yes. In a short answer, I think with the changes that have gone on in the CAA will be wide open if we commit to being a CAA school. Right. And I mean, resource wise, right? Because, because with Delaware leaving, William and Mary leaving, Villanova leaving, if I'm not mistaken, Richmond leaving, right? All of the top end of the CAA has moved on.
It was watered down. It's a watered down conference. And
well, call it what you want. But at the end of the day, that's the transition that is taking place. By the way, you already said it, so I don't nearly need to reiterate it, but I like saying it. I am long in the boat of, we're an academic institution first. We should join the Pioneer League and call it a day, right? I've said this enough times that I don't have to say it anymore. But if we're going to say in the CAA, you must accept the cultural or the systematic changes that you're going to have to make. And I'm accepting that reality because it is difficult when I spend time in the crowd with the dads and the moms and the families, and they're so excited to have their kids going to this respected, honorable institution that, you know, and that their school saw something in their kid enough to give them a chance as young people, because this is still student athletes, at least at Hampton, at least it has been. And the question on the table is, will it be going forward? Because in the chats that we're in, I'm saying it loud and over again, and I feel like I am talking to myself.
And you know my opinion
Because
about that. You know
yeah,
my opinion about
because
that. Yeah.
people forget that these are young people and it's a complicated dance. So I'm texting back and forth with parents who I've gotten to meet this season about, hey, how's your son doing? Is he okay? This is a wild situation, blah, blah, blah. And asking them, how, where do you go from here? But we on text, we in group chats talking about, I won't say what we say, but I don't say those things. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I can tell you, like I said, I mean, I'm great for the parents. I'm sure that they do have some pride in Hampton's academic prowess and history. But again, if the kids had a slightly better option to play at a place that can give them more exposure, more money, more whatever, they'd be gone. And to me, that I hold firm on that. That's the bottom line. Anyway, my coach, and again, until Hampton football is more than just background noise or elevator music, where it's just like there, where people actually care that Hampton is 11-0 and they're going to some bowl game and then none of this matters. We're the insiders. We're like insider people here, right? We actually we're actually on a podcast talking about Hampton football. That is not normal. 99.9% of Hampton people don't care, right? So I want them to start caring until we actually go all in and can get to an FCS playoff thing maybe, or something else. I don't know what that means. Then I'd rather just go the route Norfolk State did. They said, you know what? Who cares? We're going to just go get a big name and we're going to bring Good Morning America and ESPN here and we're going to have a grand old time and we're going to show you revenue growth and we could be 1-9. We don't care because 1-9 is the same as 9-1. It doesn't matter. Let's just put some money in pockets and let's put more kids through college and more financial aid and build more buildings and make the grass greener. And that's our goal. It's not to necessarily win games until we're serious about being North Dakota State, or we could play in a Celebration Bowl. But we're none of those things. We're just obscure. And I hate that. What is our goal? We still have no goal. There is no goal. I still have not heard one goal for our team other than we can win 8 games. What does that? Does that even matter? Anybody care? I know I'm a contrarian today. I'm just
No, you're not. There is no on a day like today. There is no contrarian. Everybody has a place in the conversation because at the end of the day, their stated goal is to be competitive in the FCS. That is their stated goal, right? Now, what that means or how you define it is a whole nother thing. That's pretty, you're talking about a more lofty specific goal as far as winning and making the team more relevant to the alumni or to the fan base of, as you would call it, right? That's a different thing because again, with that particular problem, you're fighting all of HBCU culture, right? People come to the football games for the entire experience, as I have articulated several times. That's what that's the special sauce about what we are and what we do. And so I think what the university is trying to do is say, we want the band's performance to be amazing and the team's on-field performance to be good, such that we might win, we might lose, but we're going to be in the games and not get, absolutely blown out week after week after week. And hopefully we'll make a few FCS playoffs and we will have more students graduate from our program than leave our program. Because if you don't have that, then you really become a different type of situation altogether. So with 100 guys on the team, that's really the question. Or you can be like some of these other programs, which is really where I think many of these programs are going, which is we just cycle in our starters, a new set of 20 or 30 guys every year, and the rest of the team is just background players that happen to be on the team, but they don't, they're not relevant. I don't think that's what Hampton is trying to do. I think they're still trying to develop them forward. But what we're doing right now is cutting our legs out from underneath us because we have a freshman class whom I'm hoping stick around. But if they're tethered to these coaches and all these coaches go, that's really the stuff that I struggle with. I hope that they take some of these players and make them part of the new coach acquisition process. I'm talking about younger guys, right? Some of the older guys, they're going to go because they're finished anyway. They got 1 year, very little time left. They're going to do whatever they need to do. That's part of this system now. It's part of the deal. But some of these younger guys who are enjoying their Hampton experience and not really ready to go anywhere else may feel like they have to because they're no longer wanted. And that is a problem, a human problem, I'm saying.
Yeah, Adam. Yeah.
No, I think the first part of this is okay. We've moved on. The most important thing now is the next hire. The next hire will be very telling. Because if we don't get this right, then you set the president's plans back. And we can talk about it all we want to, but the athletics affect enrollment. They affect the ability to sell, market, whatever you want. No matter what you envision the school being, athletics affect how you sell that image. If we're one of the great academic institutions in the world, which I think we are, the athletic department helps you sell that. That's why this hire is so important. I'm a Peninsula District alum. I graduated Gloucester High School. Now, I'm going to throw this name out there because we can do this. Buffalo Bills quarterback coach, Ronald Curry.
Yeah, okay. He's a local legend. I don't know if he would have that national whatever, but he's a name. Sure.
He could walk into any high school, especially in the 757, because the 757 from a football perspective, it's coming back.
He should be. Otherwise, what's his point? Why is he there? Anyway. It's a larger conversation. Are we unable to go after certain people because we wanted this image? So we're boxed into only a certain category of coaches or certain types of coaches.
Yes, the short answer is yes.
I want somebody who has that gold jacket-esque flair, that big buzz, but came through that pipeline and can bring his friends with him and a local person too, which would have been nice,
Well, I think Adam said it perfectly, which is, this next hire is going to tell us a whole lot about where they see themselves and what resources they're willing to put behind this. Because I don't care who they hire, whoever they get is going to say to them, what kind of money are we working with here? What are we doing here? And where Boykin may have been more willing to accept the way it works here and, whatever, a new person from outside who's worth their salt is going to have some real specific expectations for what resources the institution is going to put behind them to help them be successful. Because remember, they're putting their career into this mix too. So I do believe that whoever they get will have either local connection, as Adam said, or some serious HBCU chops. More likely, though, it will be someone who has significant, at least FCS experience, if not some FBS experience. And it may not be someone of our culture. Let me put that out there as a real, you want to start shaking things up. Truly do not believe there's anything off the table. However, A.D. Henderson been out on record and in the public talking about how he kind of knows the person or that he would like to have for any particular coaching job before he pulls the trigger. He said he's always thinking about who's going to be the next guy. And I'm talking about all sports. He said he said it. So I am fairly confident that they will make a move quickly because they know who they want. And,
I think that's the thing about it. He said this in an interview not long after they hired Coach Boykin. He said he told Trent to his face, if this does not work out, there will be a national search. So he might be just keeping his word. But we see the track record is, I always base things on the revenue sports. So the track record in that is basketball. Buck Joyner got fired right at the end of the season. And was it 5 days before we started hearing about Coach Thomas?
Yeah, it was really fast.
David Six got a retirement ceremony. The next day we were hearing about Coach Augustin.
Yeah, but switching coaches, it's just like shuffling the problem around, right? There's a fundamental problem here, right? I'd like to have something to be excited about. And you could hire whatever person, doesn't really matter. But if it's still all about just beating Howard and Norfolk State and going 5-5 in the CAA or whatever it is, that's not exciting. That's not good enough. It's just not. You're still gonna have people coming to these games, like waiting for the band to come out, not really that interested. And there's no goal and nobody cares. And I really want to see in my lifetime a Hampton University football program that actually seems like there's something to be really excited about in terms of like a goal, a mission. We all understand. We're all in on whatever the mission is, and we're realistic about that, and we're going for it, whatever that is.
That's why I keep saying, okay, you've done the first part. This is now the most important hire in what, at least 15, 20 years?
And I don't care about what they pay him, because if you're just going to keep firing coaches, then money is clearly not the problem, because you're just going to keep paying coaches not to coach, right? So find somebody in the Tidewater area who has national profile, or figure out or put the resources behind really competing in the CAA to get to the FCS tournament, or stop giving scholarships, and let's stop this game we're playing with our alumni. We're right. Again, my point of view is we're just not picking a lane. We're just all over the place. We're selling this dream that we're really something, but we're not. We're just whatever. And it's nice for us to go to homecoming and go to Norfolk State, Howard, but there is no goal. There is no realistic vision and goal for what we want to be.
But see, that's part of the problem. TJ, I've talked to you about this a bunch of times. The move had to be made because you had to finally rid yourself of the remnants of the Harvey years.
Okay, there you go.
It had to be done.
Right.
Well, that's a whole nother component. But if that's the case, the CAA is a remnant of the Harvey years in and of itself, right?
Okay.
But the point ultimately is that we've got a certain culture, what I would call a developmental culture. And if I was to put a capsule on it, the university and the football team brings 100 plus young men of various backgrounds to the institution, who majority of them will not play pro ball, and we will become the institution that they're connected to in life. But when you get to CAA or FCS ball, significant FCS ball, especially with the transfer portal and the NIL, the whole culture of college football, all the way down to what we used to call the D1AA level, is changing dramatically. And so now we're at that moment where we're saying, okay, well, everybody going to belly up to the bar, and this is what it's going to be. And if that means we're going to change the academic standards of what we expect of the players on the football team, right? And we're going to make adjustments in what we have, right? Nothing upset me more than when I was in a conversation before the season started. I was watching a guy, one of the Jackson State pundits, on X, was talking about how Hampton's football team is very high academic. They must not be very good. And I jumped on him. I said, now look, why are those mutually exclusive things in our culture? And then he tried to back it down. Oh, I'm I was just playing, man. You can't take a joke, blah, blah. I was like, no, I was like, cause I don't agree with that. And I don't think we should be putting that out there. So, but that's, those are all the questions, and I don't have answers. Those are all the questions that we're going to see going forward. And, that's why this podcast is not like others, right? I don't really focus much on wins and losses and all that kind of, right? I'm talking on the people. Who are the people that are connected to the organization, to the institution, to the team? And, what impact are we having on them? What impact are they having on us? And that's the difference. Right now, I sincerely hope that we get a great coach and role model for these young men. One who has the ability to speak to the public, speak to the recruits, speak to the alumni, get sponsorships and everything else. I certainly hope we get what we want. And I think your point, Wesley, is what exactly is that that we want out of this situation? And I think the answer, truthfully, is I don't think we all want the same thing.
That's where
that's going to be
leadership comes in.
that's why I was telling someone earlier today, no matter what happens here, someone's going to be disappointed with the hire.
Of course, that's
Guaranteed.
the nature. That's the nature of hiring.
I think you're right, Wesley. I think the thing we've got to also understand is this is the first time the fan base, alumni base, donors, whatever you want to call it, have had a voice. I thought Stephen J. Gaither's article was excellent and spot on.
Mm-hmm. Talk about the one
Part
about
of
A&T.
Yeah, about A&T going back because he mentioned us in it also.
Yep.
Part of this whole thing and part of the issues, Wesley, you got is as fans, alumni, donors, students, we've never had a voice, and now we do.
But yeah, and we should be really good because we have the access to these kids, and we need a coach like a Ron Curry who knows that area, who has the celebrity to bring in people. Say, hey, come on, we're gonna have a big old party every Saturday, and win or lose or whatever, right? You're gonna be on TV. We're gonna get you on ESPN Plus. We're gonna get you on ESPNU. We're gonna bring Good Morning America. That's what I want. But ultimately, what I want is us to pick a lane. Let's find out what we really want to be, put the resources around that, and really go for it with the backing of people like you guys who care, or you using your time on the podcast, really care about what's going on here. Let's pick a lane and go for it.
I think it's more complex than that. I definitely think that it's more complex than that. And
Are we gonna go to the national championship game? You know,
I think
I'm joking, but I'm not. I'm like, I just want to just be honest with ourselves. Hey, look, we're here for the band. We're here for the tailgate. We're going to win some. We're going to lose some. We may or may not beat our rival every year. And you guys going to have a grand old time. And that's fine. Let's just say that.
but that's the argument for returning to the CIAA. And I've said that before. Right. But that would not happen because the rest of the sports are competitive. The other sports are competitive. They're just trying to get the football team to be as competitive as the rest and kind of go from there. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I would like to see something more bold take place. And the question is, are you prepared for the impacts to the culture? And are you prepared for the resources that are required? That's it, right? So those are the two questions, right? I'll say something outrageous, and I'm not hoping for this at all, right? I've already said this, right? Okay, so are you willing to shrink the band down to 80 people to put more money into the football program, right? That would be a big issue because there's a lot of band alumni who love the band. And so that's a problem, right? But that might be the types of things you need to do because remember, you can't even take the band with you to to most CAA sites, or you don't. Even if you could, you don't. But that's not something that they do, right? So you have this scenario where you can only even use them most of the time when you play against other HBCUs which have bands. So these are the complexities of the situation that I think ultimately folks have to come to grips with. Not to mention the fact that all of these, as Adam said, casual alums who wanted this change and want this have also got to be ready to start donating directly to the athletics department. Right. So because you're going to have to put your money where your proverbial mouth is. And so that's a challenge as well, because it can't be the alums who've been giving. It's got to be new people, or the ones who have been giving will have to give a lot more, and specifically to athletics. So these are all the things that casual alums are going to have to embrace. And to your point, Wesley, the buy-in will come when people start putting their money in behind it. So if you are sponsoring a football player, right, you're giving X amount of dollars behind, the NIL deals for football players. Maybe you'll watch the whole game instead of some small portion thereof because you're now economically tied. But that presents another problem, right? Which is, now people feel like they own the team. Right. And they can say what player they want to come in and what coach they want fired and all of this kind of stuff that the NFL doesn't even deal with. Right. Because the NFL is private ownership. We can fan all we want. They don't care. That's not this. This is going to be really weird and complex for a while.
Yeah, I don't want us to give money to the sports directly. What's the point? I'd rather you give that money right to the general fund and give kids scholarships and stuff like that. And unless we're competing for something that has real stakes that really matter. So
Wes,
until
make
you
no
can tell me
mistake.
that we're gonna win this, we're gonna win the FCS championship or something, or Celebration Bowl, what is the point? That's just
Wes,
my opinion.
Wes, make
So
no mistake. That's tough because make no mistake about it. This
yeah,
firing was to get
yeah.
more money, get the alumni on the side of giving more money to the athletics department. That's why this guy was let go. It wasn't because of the losses. Don't let you know. Don't mistake that. This is in a large part because they were concerned that the type of money they need to raise in the NIL in order to what they feel be sustaining competitiveness, he was not going to be able to do.
But
So
what
let's get
alumni
somebody
is out
else.
there that I'm just wondering what alumni is out there that collectively has the money that really cares if Hampton goes 5-5 and beats Howard every year to put money
We
towards. I don't get it. I don't understand what the point of that is.
we're getting ready
Well,
to
I
find
think,
out.
but see, that goes back to number one, the conversation of that y'all had of who do we want to be, and the second part of it is okay, alumni, fans, donors, students. We finally got a voice now.
Mhm.
What are we going to do, and how is the athletic director and the president communicating those needs to us? Once those needs get communicated, what are we
Mhm.
going to do then? As a fan base, I refuse to believe we're ever going to be FAMU's base or a Jackson fan base, a Southern, an A&T fan base where you've got a very loud fan base that you know where you stand. We're always gonna be very reserved. And when the time to make a move, the money will be there and the move will be made. I don't ever think we're going to be that kind of fan, that kind of loud fan base. But I do think as fans, we do need to decide, okay, what do we want to be? Okay.
Yeah,
And then how are we going to get there? Tell us how we're going to get there.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with
And
you.
what do we need to do to help you get there?
Exactly. And if somebody could tell me, hey, if we can all rally around this thing and if we can win the CAA every year, then we're going to put another $1 million in scholarships in the hands of our students. I can understand that cause and effect. I don't think anything is communicated to us to care that we just beat our rival, win the homecoming game, and go 5-5. I want to know if we're going to really invest and pick a lane, and we're going to put resources, alumni resources, directly in NIL, whatever. Then this means if we win this, it's going to mean this much growth in our universe. I want them to know exactly that path. I have not heard a direct correlation where I would get excited as alumni saying, wow, you mean if we win the CAA, that means an extra 10 mil towards we could build another building? I want to know. I'd love to know it because if it's not that, then who cares?
Yes.
I would love to just know the plan because I'd like to know. I'm an analytical person. I want to know success. Like for every dollar we put into this, we're gonna get $2 out. Or if we win this, we're gonna get a building. You know,
And I think that's the point that has to be made. There's a section of us who just,
right?
what are we asking the question? What are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
There's a section of us that are like, okay, well, we got to do this, this, and this. We now need communication.
Like I said, a lot of different groups, a lot of different metrics. Many of us will be disappointed no matter what. But because we're all on the side of rooting for the school, we want to see the school win. The problem is we don't all define winning the same way. And so that is where it gets a little murky. And I come back to the point of those whose lives are directly affected need to be considered. None of us are directly affected by this, right? It is a ancillary item on our otherwise busy agendas. But as it goes for players who are there now and players who are there to come, the types of direction and activities that the institution chooses going forward will matter. And so that's kind of the thought process.
I'll say that I think we are directly affected because we all want this institution to be here 100 years from now. And we all have maybe grandkids or whatever that eventually may go to this school and all these other conversations, right? So as solvent as Hampton can make itself and as much as Hampton can grow and have a master plan that works for all of us and fends off the troubles that schools of higher learning have these days, keeping that endowment growing, keeping more money for scholarships and financial aid, I think that all matters. So if you can fund our solvency, and
Athletics.
keep us here for another 50 years. I think that's all in our best interest. And I want to see if we can finally turn on that spigot to say, okay, let's get that cash flowing in a way, take some risk, get that cash flowing and maybe take a moonshot here.
Well,
That's my point.
a-
You know,
as I said in our other conversation, I do believe that is an indirect effect on us. If you feel it's direct, that's fine. I certainly hope that the institution finds its way or continues to find its way. Yet, um, I do think I guess what I want to say is it matters how you do what you do. Yeah,
yeah.
it also matters how you do what you do. And I'm never going to be a fan of trying to be like schools that have billions and billions of dollars and alumni with companies that can donate millions and millions of dollars, and we want to function like them. We don't have that, and we got to be more thoughtful and creative in the way in which we do things. I do think that's going to happen, but I do understand, Wesley, that there needs to be some metrics that are articulated to the public or to the alumni base, right? About what the goals are. And I'm sure those exist. We're just not privy to them. And maybe if we were, more people like you would be, more engaged in, what it's going to take to get us there. So I completely understand that. And, we're just going to have to wait and see. But with that, gentlemen,
For
I am
sure.
very, very thankful for the ability to at least get it out, You're sitting around looking at this going, what in the world is going on? And we got a chance to get it out. And we represent a very, very small faction of a larger and very vibrant alumni base. And yet the institution is going to do what the institution is going to do, regardless of whatever we say. So, um, with that, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Wesley. My name is TJ Jones, your Pirate Players Then and Now podcast, Hampton football enthusiast. Take care. Stay blessed.